to enhance potable water distribution across the Federal Capital Territory. President Tinubu described the Water Initiative as a transformative project that enhances national development agenda. Godwin Sunday has the details. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, has announced Nigeria's readiness to host the West Africa Economic Summit 2025 under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu from June 20 to 21, 2025 at the Abuja International Conference Center. Speaking during a media parley with journalists at the ministry's office in Abuja, the minister stated that the summit, which has its theme West Africa Economic Summit, Unlocking Trade and Investment Opportunities in the Region, designed to serve as a strategic platform for shaping the economic future and sub-region. Global TV correspondent Ramsey Enoch Abo reports.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Metama Tuga, says the West African Economic Summit 2025 is a solution-oriented initiative that seeks to establish a harmonized trade policy framework to eliminate barriers to intra-African commerce and investment, and also to mobilize resources for critical infrastructure, energy, and logistics to improve the free movement of goods and people.
WISE 2025 is a solutions-oriented initiative that seeks to establish a harmonized trade policy framework to eliminate barriers to intra-African commerce and investment, promote inclusive economic growth with particular attention to empowering women, youth, and small and medium enterprises.
The summit will feature a high-level dialogue between heads of state and business leaders, culminating in a joint communique that articulates shared regional priorities and concrete plan of action. The summit is to facilitate deliberate steps toward a prosperous, united, and globally competitive West Africa.
Summit highlights will feature the following key components: a presidential roundtable and CEO forum, a high-level dialogue between heads of state and business leaders, culminating in a joint communique that articulates shared regional priorities and a concrete plan of action.
Ramsey Enoch Agbo reporting for Global TV News.
Moving on, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Ebetokun, has assured the people of Benue State that security agencies will redouble their efforts in ensuring that lasting peace is restored to pave the way for peace and tranquility in the state. IGP Ebetokun gave the assurance during his on-the-spot visit to the state to ascertain the level of devastation of the recent attacks by suspected armed headers in Benue State. Correspondent Felicity Indere reports.
The visit of the Inspector General of Police IGP Kayode Ebetokun and the Chief of Defense Staff General Musa Christopher and their delegation is to commiserate with people of Benue State over recent suspected armed herders attacks that claimed dozens of lives and to have a first-hand assessment of the damage left behind by the attackers.
Yusuf.
That day is drawing nearer. I can assure you that we are committed to fight this battle and win this war. My appeal to the community is to cooperate with us.
For us, like I said, we want this to be the last one that will happen. We're going to go all out to ensure that we address it. We have put in measures in other places and it has worked. Here is not going to be different. I want to assure Nigerians that not only Benue State, all over the country, we are determined, based on the mandate of Mr. President, to ensure that we restore peace and tranquility within our country.
Governor Hisense Aliyah expressed gratitude for the visit, describing it as a gesture that represents the federal government's commitment in finding a lasting solution to the attacks that have lingered for long.
This is a killings uncalled for. Whatever thing it is, it's quite unfortunate that this kind of a carnage, this kind of killings, persists. I know we remain very hopeful that this kind of a devastating occurrence would not happen, not only within the local government.
Some residents of Yelwata who spoke to Global TV News expressed their agony in the hands of attackers.
They came in around the Yelwata East, started firing gunshots. They fired for almost 5 hours. They met a stiff resistance here from the police. Immediately when they met the resistance, they moved towards Yelwata Market, Yelwata New Market. There they slaughtered more than 100 persons. The incidents lasted for more than 5 hours. They burnt some of our community members in stores there. There are some stores that are housing more than 50 persons. All were burnt down.
They have killed 3 persons in a house. That was the starting of the massacre. Yes. So as that happens, then we were afraid. And that was at my own personal area. They were 4 in numbers. And they are Fulanis.
The delegation had earlier held a closed-door meeting with the governor for security details.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Moving on, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the attacks perpetrated over the weekend in Benue, north-central Nigeria, in which sources of civilians were killed. Guterres said those responsible for the violence should be apprehended, adding that dozens of people were killed while they slept and several were displaced following brutal attacks on the village of Yelewata. Still in Benue State, where the Labour Party condemned the recent mass killing, calling for immediate deployment of security personnel to protect vulnerable communities across Nigeria's north-central region. In a statement, Usman expressed deep sorrow over the killing of more than 100 people, including women, children, displaced persons, and security operatives, as well as the destruction of homes and livelihood. Describing the attacks as a fresh wave of senseless killings, the party's National Caretaker Committee, chaired by Senator Nenadi Usman, urged a full-scale investigation and swift prosecution of the perpetrators, regardless of status or affiliation. Meanwhile, former Anambra State Governor and 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has criticized President Bola Tinubu's delayed visit to crisis-hit regions in the country. In a post on X, Obi hailed Tinubu's planned visit to Benue massacre communities, but noted that similar compassion should be shown to communities in Niger State, particularly Mokwa, where floods reportedly claimed over 200 lives and left more than 1,000 people missing. Obi warned that selective empathy and leadership by remote control sent a dangerous message to grieving Nigerians. Ibrahim Mantu, former deputy president of the Nigerian Senate, has died at the age of 74. He reportedly passed in a private hospital in Abuja, where he had been receiving treatment for a few days. Funeral prayers were scheduled to take place the same day at the Apo Legislative Mosque in Abuja. Mantu's political career spanned over 4 decades, beginning his journey in 1978 and rising to become Deputy State Chairman of the National Party of Nigeria, NPN, in Plateau State in 1980. He was a founding member of the Liberal Convention and in 1990 contested unsuccessfully for the national chairmanship of the National Republican Convention, NRC. You're watching the live broadcast of Midday News. When the Midday News returns, Nigeria's food inflation drops for the second time to 21.14% in May. Details coming shortly, plus foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now we'll go to the business news. The President, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Comrade Festus Osifo, has called on the federal government to investigate the shutting down of Port Harcourt and Warri refineries few months after the resumed operation. The association's president made this known while addressing journalists on critical issues impacting the nation's oil and gas sector. Godwin Sunday was there for Global TV News.
The President, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Comrade Festus Osifo, called on the federal government to urgently rehabilitate Nigeria's 4 national refineries and consider investing majority shares to the private sector, adopting a model similar to the natural gas, NLNG.
We are calling on government and the handlers of the refineries, the management of NNPC Limited, to look at the full scope of the refinery, to look at the operational model of the refinery, and to yield to the time-tested call that we have made in Pengassan. Successive administrations in Pengassan has called on government at all levels, most especially because these are federation assets, to come together and ensure that our refineries are managed optimally.
The union proposed the creation of strategic petroleum product reserves across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones to mitigate fuel shortages and ensure a stable supply. He emphasized the need for long-term strategic planning in the energy sector.
Then, on the issues of pipeline vandalization, a lot of these companies, they have deployed private drones. A lot of these companies, they brought in security experts, even from abroad, on how the issues of pipeline vandalization could be curbed. Whereas in other countries, these are facilities that are protected by government. So government must be alive to its responsibility to ensure that the oil and gas infrastructures across the nook and cranny of Nigeria, they are well protected.
The union reiterated its commitment to advocating for the welfare of Nigerians' oil and gas workers and contributing to the development of a robust and sustainable energy sector. Godwin Sunday, reporting for Global Television News.
Nigeria's food inflation rate has declined for the second consecutive time to 21.14% in May 2025, down from 21.26% in April 2025. The National Bureau of Statistics disclosed this in its latest Consumer Price Index released. Similarly, headline inflation dropped to 22.97% in May from 23.71% in April 2025. A deal removing some trade barriers between the UK and US has been signed off by President Donald Trump. The move will bring into force parts of an agreement agreed between the two countries last month and reduce tariffs on UK cars being shipped to the US. It comes after weeks of talks to implement part of the pact, which the UK government hopes will shield Britain businesses from the impact of Trump's tariffs. And on the foreign scene, as Israel and Iran continue to exchange missiles, the European Commission has waded in, stating its stance on the conflict. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also made a case for Gaza aid to be effectively facilitated. Uyi Abumefrebe reports.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says she told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that diplomacy is ultimately best on Iran, but stopped short of calling for an immediate ceasefire.
Iran should never acquire nuclear weapons. So in the call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, he described the situation. We were both, of course, aligned in the fact that Iran should not have nuclear weapons without any question. Of course, I think a negotiated solution is in the long term the best solution.
She, however, made clear that in her telephone conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu, they both agreed that Iran should not be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons.
I insisted and urged that humanitarian aid that is not reaching Gaza has to go into Gaza. He promised that this is the case and that this will be the case. So I will be working, coming back home from G7, on having a close look at the facts, where our humanitarian aid is, how it reaches Gaza, whether it gets into Gaza, what we can do to make sure that humanitarian aid reaches the people in Gaza.
Von der Leyen, who has been critical of Israel over its offensive in Gaza, placed the blame for the new conflict on Iran, pointing to the UN nuclear watchdog's finding earlier in the week that it was not in compliance with its obligations. Uyi Agmofwegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
Still on the foreign scene, blasts have rocked Tehran and air raid sirens went off in Tel Aviv as Israel and Iran exchanged missile and drone attacks for a fifth day. The Israeli military claims killing Iran's wartime chief of staff after Iranian media say preparations on the way for what they call the largest and most intense missile attack on Israeli soil. U.S. President Donald Trump has also issued a warning on social media, urging all residents of Tehran to flee, saying Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, while the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says killing Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei would not escalate hostilities but end the conflict. Ukraine officials say at least 15 people have been killed and dozens more wounded in Russian strikes on the Ukraine capital, Kyiv. Ukraine's Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko says a total of 440 drones and 32 missiles have been launched at the country. The attack overnight into early morning hours was one of the largest bombardments of Kyiv since the beginning of the full-scale invasion more than 3 years ago. And now in sports, chairman of the Nigerian Premier Football League, Benga Elebeleye, says the league body is in search of sponsors for the procurement of video assistant referee machines for the Nigerian top flight. Elebeleyes made this known while addressing the media during an end-of-season party in Abuja. The introduction of VAR has usually come to the fore in NPFL, no thanks to some questionable officiating which had marred the image of the league. Following the Nigerian Premier Football League (NPFL) directives on facilities upgrade, the Lafayette City Stadium will undergo a major upgrade ahead of the 2025-2026 season. The stadium is the home ground of the Nigerian Premier Football League (NPFL) side Nasarawa United. Galatasaray will contact Newcastle United for their star striker Alexander Isak if they fail to sign Victor Osimhen on the Parliament transfer. This was disclosed by sports presenter Volkan Kilik on a post on X, where he also admitted that the possibility of Galatasaray landing Isak